How you make this, Jay?
Welcome back to the locker room. I am Captain Paul. That is Fajardo. How's it going on, Fajardo?
I'm living, making it through the day. That's it.
So, we have been very busy within our own personal lives. We apologize. The previews for the next season have been a little bit hindered, but we're getting back on schedule. We're going to be tackling the Western Conference Central Division of the NHL. Really excited to get back into this. Before we get into this long show, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It's really cool. We have 45 subscribers. A lot of the videos have been getting a lot of views, so we appreciate that. Anything else to add there before we get into it?
No, obviously this is brought to you by one of our sponsored, Groovy J. We appreciate the beats. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Groovy J. And you know what? Let's start with a team that doesn't really have an arena.
Yeah.
We're kind of in an interesting situation with the Arizona Coyotes. This is a team that is struggling. I mean, not just on the ice, off the ice as well. And before we get into the preview, I have to actually ask this to you. Do you think Arizona will stay in Arizona in 5 years from now? Do you think they'll still be there?
I mean, they normally have a pretty good fan base, but lately, obviously, the team hasn't been good, so they've been losing that fan base. And then with so many other, so many other states close by that have real good quality teams, it's hard to see them staying in Arizona. I do expect them to move. Where? No clue yet. But I unless something turns around within the next season or two, I see them moving within the next 5 years for sure.
I mean, like for me as a guy watching how this franchise has been kind of really poorly run, it's I don't know how much longer it's going to last. You have viable markets even down south, like in Houston, that would probably support a hockey team. There are people that argue, as Arizona Coyote fans, that the place of where the rink was hurt because it was a pain in the ass to get to. So maybe if they had something a little bit more viable for an arena, we could be looking at something very different. But they're currently going to be playing at Arizona State University's college hockey arena that like a whopping 5,000 fans. So this is kind of an embarrassment to the NHL. So let's get right into it. Let's kind of go into the roster construction of these Arizona Coyote Hockey Club. I mean, you got Clayton Keller, $7.1 million. That's the high man on this roster. And, I mean, you see some nice players here, but a bunch of role guys, nothing that really kind of sticks out as superstar, right? Mm-hmm. On the back end, you got Chikrin, who's a really good defenseman. He's young still. He's a guy I could see kind of really maybe developing that next step, next level. You have Ghost of Spare, who's a solid NHL defender. There's nothing crazy on this roster, and let's just kind of break it down in the depth chart because they have over $20 million in cap space, so they could add if they needed to, but they're not going to be adding. So let's break down the forwards. Fajardo, who sticks out to you right now?
Let's see. Out of the forwards, it's one of those that there's nobody that's like super outstanding, right? Their best player is Clayton Keller. He's a long-term man, right? So he's the one who needs to kind of be that anchor. Outside of that, I mean, you're looking at Nick Schmaltz. That's it, really. I mean, everybody else is kind of just role-playing, just average at best, So nobody on their current roster that really wows you and really says, okay, I can take the team and put it under my wing and let's go. This is the way we should be. Yeah. So it's really hard as far as like all their players. There's no real, big leadership. I know they added like Patrick Nemeth, but I mean, let's be honest. the only reason he didn't stay on the Rangers is because every time he was on the ice during the playoffs, they lost.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a young team overall, right?
Yeah.
You know, like leadership are going to come from guys like Andrew Ladd, who's the oldest guy on this roster, I believe, at 36. Yep, he's the oldest guy.
Yep.
You know, he's a fourth line guy at this point. His career is kind of big downturn. He's just not the player he used to be in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of youth at center, right? You see a 22-year-old in Barrett Hayton, Nathan Smith at 23, and then Jack McBain at 22. Will those players keep improving? You had Hayton with 24 points in 60 games for a young player. That's not bad. Nathan Smith in limited action, 10 games played, 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points. Again, not bad. He's still on an ELC contract. And then you got Jack McBain in 10 games, 2 goals, 1 assist for 3 points. And you're hoping these ELCs and these young players develop. The one worry for me is unless Schmaltz gets moved to the center position on that first line is you're going to have a lot of youth and a lot of inexperience. Now, Hayton did have 60 games last year in the Big Show, so hopefully he keeps developing. But I see this as a forward group that will be, I mean, outside of Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz, who were just a hair under a point per game, I don't know where the offense is going to be coming from. I just don't. I don't know if they're good enough right now to even be considered average.
Yeah. I mean, they have a bunch of guys in their minor system that have put up some points here and there. A lot of guys came up and they worked with the team, all that stuff. But if you look at all their minor guys, they have a lot of potential in their prospect system. Most of their guys, they have at least like anywhere from I think it's 6 players and up that are second early third round players all the way to first round as forwards, and even defensive they have two guys that are third round, second round. But again, I mean, if you're looking for those guys to come on the scene and explode, I mean, this is like a full blown out rebuild. But the problem is that with Arizona, it's been a rebuild for years.
It's been a rebuild since their inception, essentially.
You know what I mean?
I mean, it's rough, man. It's very, very rough. And I mean, the product's not great up front. Now, on the defensive end, I mean, Gostisbehere, offensively, not bad, right? 51 points, 82 games, not bad. Minus 23 ain't great. I slotted on cap friendly, and this isn't obviously finished depth chart. You have Dyson Mayo, 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points, 6-7 games, minus 22. Chychrun, 47 games, 7 goals, 14 assists, 21 points, minus 20. Connor Timmins, 0-0-0 in 6 games played, minus 6. And then you have Patrick Nemeth, like you said, struggled at times with the Rangers, and even in the postseason. Yeah. And then you have Troy Stetcher, there's no one out here that I'm like, oh my God, amazing, right? Even Chychrun himself, I think can be a top 2 pairing defenseman, but it's kind of hard to judge these guys because when you watch Arizona games, man, defensively sometimes they will be very poorly positioned, or they just play it very, I don't know, they play a very up and down game, to put it very politely. Yeah. There's not really any refinement to that game. I mean, what are your thoughts on this defense? Because I just see a lot of, younger guys, right, with the 23, 24, 26. 29s, you're kind of in your prime. 30, you should be in your prime. Same with 28. But it seems like a mixture of some younger guys and some vets, but I don't see much talent.
I mean, we could just start off by looking at their plus minus. There's not one of them that's in the plus. Including Nemeth, who they got from a team that went deep into the playoffs. The fact that he's a minus, and that's weird signings. I mean, now granted, like we said at the beginning of this, is they do have $20 million in cap space. What are they holding on to? What are they not pulling the trigger? I know they're not attractive, so they can overpay on some guys and bring some more to the team, but again, it's one of those where, what are you doing? I mean, you've lost your arena, kind of, right? You've kind of lost your. First of all, you go from an arena that can hold thousands to just a college
5,000,
a college arena that can only hold 5,000. Now, if you can't fill a 5,000, 5,000 in the stands, you're really having a bigger issue, So, I mean, why don't they just pull the trigger and grab somebody off the free agents list, or someone who isn't happy, like. They're one, if not the only team that can probably grab a freaking Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane. Not saying that they're going to be game changers, but you kind of need the star power. You kind of need the star power. You need something because you have nothing right now.
I think honestly the reason why they're so cheap and towards the cap floor is because they realize this season's not going to be a financial success. Right? You can't run a franchise. An NHL franchise off 5,000 fans. Yep. You can't. Let's be honest. I don't know if they'll sell that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be blunt because, who's going to come to Arizona? Maybe they give away the tickets. I mean, right. It's embarrassing. It's just, they're an embarrassment to the NHL.
Even Hayton, he hasn't signed. He's technically on their roster because he's a restricted free agent. But that doesn't mean he's going to play for the team.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm just assuming because they have so much cap space, he'll be re-signed. But that's a valid point. I mean, this is the one bright spot, in my opinion, to the team last season was Karel Velmeka. I'm going to butcher it. I know some of you assholes in the comment section will say shit about the pronunciation, but I don't care. You know who I'm talking about. 52 games played. 898 save percentage, 3.68 goals against, 13 wins, 32 losses. Now you're like, whoa, what, Paul? Why is that good? If you watched him play, and sometimes it'd be up and down, but he was one of the sole reasons they even won games last year. Yeah. He was phenomenal. I think you get him around an actual team, you could really see something, special. I mean, he reminds me of a way, kind of like Mike Smith, up and down at times, but it's hard to judge him because when you're in front of the worst team in the NHL, I mean, that's not terrible statistics. It's just not.
I mean, the big question here is what is their plan? I mean, are they so out of focus with the whole arena, with everything else going on, that they just haven't come to we got a team to build here? Because again, you have all these young players, you have a few veterans, right? But let's face it. These veterans aren't in a good place, and the young guys are learning nothing. They're getting punished every time they go out there. So, what are you really doing, Arizona? We got to figure this out. You guys are in a very offensive-driven division and conference. So, you guys got to really figure something out here. You gotta make some magic happen. Make some trades, whatnot. And if you're going to rely on the young prospects, I mean, you got a lot of good prospects. Take a look at some of those guys and give them more time. I mean, you have who was it? They have Dauphin in the minors. Yeah. 38 games played. He had He had 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points. Nothing mind blowing, but. Obviously, he found something that you can build on possibly, but you really don't have anything. Defensively, I mean, again, some more guys, that have potential, but if you're not using them, then what is the point of having them? Start making some moves, trade straight for better drafts. I mean, granted, your draft position, I think in next year's draft, you guys have a really good situation going on. Right, yeah. They have 3 picks in the second round. They have 4 picks in the third round. 3 with 1 conditional one that they got from the Rangers. So, are you waiting until next year's draft class? I mean, even with the 2023 draft class, they have just the basics: round 1, round 2, 2 in the third. That's it. And the 2024, which is 2 years away. That's where they have a lot of actual draft picks. Now, if I was them, I mean, you want to bolster your team, start trading away some of those draft picks, and start getting guys that can actually produce for you, because this makes no sense.
No, it does. It makes absolutely no sense. And, like I said, I think the only bright spot on this team is the goaltending. And even that, it's like, I feel bad for him. I mean, I hope he he's 26 years old, so finally came over last year to play. But, I mean, he's probably excited until that 2025. He's like, get me out of here, please, for the love of God. So, I hate to do it to him like this, but let's just get into it, man. I mean, listen. I don't think it's a stretch to assume that you think they're going to be the worst team in the Central, right?
Nope, not at all. They are definitely going to be bottom cellar dwellers.
I mean, okay, listen. I think they finished 8th. That's it. I think you finished 8th as well. Like, I don't think there's anything crazy. We jump into conclusions. I actually have a more interesting proposition, or I would say question. Over under, do they win more than 25 games this season?
Ooh.
They won 25 last season.
I give them 27.
I go under.
I go over. I think that some of those guys grew up a little bit. They'll probably be a little more of a challenge now that they got some games under their belt a whole season, and they know how bad it feels to lose all the time and being considered one of the worst teams. I think that at some point, even with the organization being absolute garbage at this moment, maybe they find some pride within their own gameplay and say, hey, you know what? Forget about the organization. We need to play for each other and really go out there and, give it a decent push. Again, I don't see them coming out of 8th, but, I do expect them to at least repeat or get maybe a couple of wins higher than what they did last season.
I'm thinking 21 wins because that's my number. I think... just that 106 goal differential from last year is so bad. So, I mean, I don't think we're going to crazy, standard saying that. But before we move on to an actual NHL franchise, anything you would like to add?
Arizona, if you need a head coach or anybody to help with your coaching, just hit us up here at the show. We'll be more than happy to take the reins and help you guys out. Because at this point, you probably have guys that are way less hockey smart at this point. So you might as well, hire some guys like us to actually look at games and look at gameplay and see what you can do to hopefully improve the franchise. Just saying. My services are available.
They are available, but speaking of a franchise that is trying to get itself out of shame, let's go to the Chicago Blackhawks. This is a team that is very rich in history, very rich in its tradition. Listen, it's got $7 million in projected cap space, 7.5. It's been a downtrend for these boys, though. I mean, you have the guys in the upper part of this roster making 10.5. You got Seth Jones making 9.5, which for him I thought was a little rich. And you have Peter Mrázek and Stalik in net. Like I don't see anyone besides Patty Kane. There's nobody here that's like whoo, like can't believe how talented he is. So let's just start with the forwards. I mean, you got Jonathan Taves, who's the fossil of what he used to be. You got Patrick Kane, who's 92 points, is phenomenal, still one of the best players in the NHL. You have Andreas Athanasiou, 17 points in 28 games last season. You have Max Domi, who's a career underperformer. People always think they get more out of him. He had 39 points in 72 games. Tyler Johnson, 26 games played, only 7 points. I mean, there's just...
Athanasiou, he's one of those guys, he's had better seasons, right? And you're hoping, as a Chicago fan, that he goes back to those days. He's only 28, so you're hoping he turns a corner here. I mean, he did better when he was younger, yes, but, at 28, you should be at your prime, or hitting your prime. So, hopefully he can make a step and get back on the right side of things. Max Domi is Max Domi, right? He's gonna go all out for you all the time. Yeah. But a lot of the guys on these contracts, this is their contract year. And for those that don't know, contract year means this is the last year of your contract. So you want to show out So that way, either the same team signs you for more money, or you get traded, or you sign for another team for more money. Yeah. Right? So you have a lot of guys that are in that particular situation with this season coming up. So, I mean, I expect them to be a little more, how you say, outgoing, a little more
productive.
A little bit more productive. Again, you know, they have guys that are core players on this roster and have never been more. This is their opportunity to do something different, you know. So hopefully they can find a leg to stand on, and really make a change here in their culture.
Yeah. I mean, I think it kind of comes down to it that, I mean, even their drafting wasn't great, and I think we should break down each draft of the team in another video. Mm-hmm. But I mean, their draft wasn't amazing, but I think Jonathan Toews is cooked. Patrick Kane's still Patrick Kane, but I just, outside of a couple pieces, now mind you, this isn't a high bar, but I think they'll be better than Arizona, but I don't really see anything outside of that.
I can hold a reunion for my high school hockey team with all of us out of shape, and we'd be more competitive than Arizona. Okay?
I mean, that's facts. I mean, that was pretty much disrespectful. But let's get to the defense here. I mean, you got, and obviously these aren't the depth charts from the teams. Calm down. It's from Cap Friendly. But you got Jake McCabe, 75 games last season, 4 goals, 18 assists for 22 points, minus 27. You have Seth Jones at $9.5 million for 78 games played, 5 goals, 46 assists for 51 points, minus 37. Jack Johnson, 74 games played, 1 goal, 8 assists, 9 points, a positive plus minus, and we all know where Jack Johnson came from, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, Cup champion.
If I hear anybody, including yourself, say, "Oh, that's champion pedigree," I need you to stop there.
That is absolutely champion pedigree. Stop disrespecting the legend.
It's not disrespect. You got one title. Okay, that doesn't mean you're a champion pedigree. Like if you were the guy that was there, maybe on 2 different teams or a repeat team or something along those lines, but my man only has one after how many seasons.
Is a legend. Don't disrespect him like that.
I'm not disrespecting him. I'm just being honest. I'm not taking anything away from his leadership skills. I'm just saying, if you're looking for him to be the one to change this franchise around, I think you're in the wrong place.
Well, I don't think he'll be in the top 4. He's a bottom pairing defenseman at this point in his career. I will say, quick side note, Jack Johnson, how he got screwed over in life, it was good to see him turn it around, 100%, personally.
Yes.
Like, he got screwed over by family, so that was kind of cool. Yeah. Connor Murphy, 57 games played, 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 points. Riley Stillman, 52 games, 2 goals, 10 assists, 12 points. Caleb Jones, 51 games, 5 goals, 10 assists, 15 points. And, -8, -3 respectively. I mean, the best plus minus on this team is Jack Johnson, but you play with Colorado, so I can't count that.
I mean, that's kind of where I expect the change to happen, like with players growing and so on and so forth, is with the Stillman and Jones, Caleb Jones. I think that they need to take that next step in their game and to improve the entire squad. They're going to be the ones that you look at, as the young guys, saying, okay, cool, we had our season, it didn't go well, we got to change it this season and take that next step up.
Absolutely, yeah. You got to see something from those guys to kind of take that next step and really develop further. I mean, Seth Jones, to me, is not a $9.5 million defenseman. I'd be more comfortable probably around the 7 range.
Yeah.
Because what these numbers don't show at times is that Jones can be a little kind of kooky defensively. But let's get into goaltending. Mm-hmm. Peter Murasik, 3.8 mil cap hit, which a little rich in my opinion, but do you? 20 games played, 3.34 goals against, 8.89 save percentage, and a 12-6 record. Record's good at least. And then Alex Stalock, 1 game played, 7.83 goals against, and a 78.6 save percentage, and 0-1. Obviously, that was one really bad game. So,
I mean, that was enough for them to say you're not playing anymore. Alex
Stalock, he's 35, he's older. He's always been known as like a decent backup, right? Peter Mrazek's been that goalie that's always like you thought you could get more out of him. You had him in Detroit. Mm-hmm. They picked an older Jimmy Howard over Peter Murasik because Mrazek had character issues. He gets to Carolina, right? Instead of being content with him, was it Mrazek and Nedeljkovic at one point? Mm-hmm. And then it's funny because Nedeljkovic goes to Detroit, but they bring in completely different goalies. They brought in, Anderson and what's the other kid's name that plays for Carolina? That's gonna bother me. But they brought in 2 new goalies, and it was like, well, why is this? Because Peter Mrazek is that goalie that you think you can get more from, but you just can't. I mean, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's mental. Maybe it's this.
Oh, they have Antti Raanta still.
Thank you, Antti Raanta. Yeah. I mean, Antti Raanta is actually a pretty good goalie when he's healthy. Yeah. But Peter Mrazek's kind of a below average to average NHL starter. Yeah. Alex Stalock, at this point in his career, we'll see. Maybe he's got something more to prove, but probably like an average backup to a below average backup. So, like, the one thing I have to ask here, kind of going down into maybe their farm system. Do any of these goalies take the next step up the challenge? You got Arvid Soderblom and you got Jackson Staber, both 23. That's relatively young in goalie. And then your prospects here, you got young goalies that you're probably never going to sniff the NHL this season. They shouldn't, or you will ruin them. And you have to truly ask, like, is this the game plan in net? Like, to me, when I look at that tandem, I want your opinion. I think they've already given up on the season.
100%. I don't think that they're out here to compete, which is one of the things that's upsetting to Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, which is why
they want out.
The big, hey, we don't know we want to be here if you guys are going to rebuild and start from scratch, because they remember when they started. They were the guys that came in, right? And yeah. I guess looking at the players that they got, they're looking and they're like, yeah, no, that's not us. We can't. They can't change a franchise around like we did, and there's not enough to be built on, probably in their opinion, which is why they do want that out, right? But I mean, they have $7 million cap space. Where would you spend it if you were them?
I mean, if I was to spend it anywhere, I think you spent already 9.5 on Jones. Jones is going to be your cornerstone defenseman, whether that's good or bad. You got young guys back here. I mean, I don't see the point in getting a guy. Like, I feel good for Johnson just because of his situation. It doesn't make sense, though. I mean, why would I? If I'm Johnson, I'm like, why am I going to Chicago? It's a train wreck. Maybe it's one of the only teams that can give him a contract, but. I mean, personally, looking at this roster, I would probably try to sign or trade for a very good young center or young winger. I mean, there's just not much here to me that really stands out. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, outside Patrick Kane, no disrespect to Toews, but Patrick Kane is by far the best player. Like, if you divided Patrick Kane by 10, he's still better than all these other players.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, so like if I was Chicago personally, I would trade Kane and Toews for a shitload of picks. Now, you're not going to get as much of a return on Toews because you'll have to absorb some of that contract, it's only 1 year, right? 1 year. Trade him. Absorb half of Toews' contract. I think you could find a buyer for Patrick Kane at $10 million. Maybe you absorb a couple mil. Or you can't absorb 50%, I believe, in the NHL. But let's say you absorb a few million on each player. You could get a fucking ton of prospects for Toews. Mm-hmm. Toews, maybe a solid prospect or draft pick, but just rebuild. Rebuild, because there's nothing here that shouts to me even playoff contender. What are your thoughts? What would you do?
I definitely would trade. even if it's one of those two guys, definitely get some picks. Take bear some of that wage, and know that next season is where you start the full rebuild. This season, I mean, with what you have, you're nowhere in a good place. But if you trade maybe for one or two prospects and a couple of draft picks, you might be in a much better position as you start your following year. Because this year, I mean, you're in a conference that literally is super stacked with good teams.
Yeah,
and even
it's a deep conference.
Yeah,
I mean deep division. Sorry.
Yeah, even other other teams in your division that have young guys have already gone through the rebuilding process. You're kind of late to the party. A lot of teams in the NHL have gone over that rebuilding structure over the past 2 or 3 years, and you are still stuck with two guys that carried you to a couple of championships from maybe a decade ago. So I think it's time to move on from not only them, give them the respect they're due, and maybe trade them to a contending team that may need their services. But I mean, rebuild. I don't think you have enough here to even make the playoffs, and even if you do make the playoffs, you're squeaking in and you're getting eliminated early.
Absolutely, I don't see this team as being viable. So, I mean, let's get into it. They finished just ahead of the Arizona Coyotes. Where do you think they finished this season?
Right back in the same place. Honestly, everybody else in this division is
a lot better.
Is looking good. Have made some moves. So yeah, I mean, the fact that the only team you're looking better than on paper is Arizona. You really got to start rethinking the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree. I think that they're gonna finish 7th. I mean, I think they're gonna finish 7th.
They may get 31 wins though. You gotta aim high, and that's aiming high for them at this point. It's sad
to see. It's sad to see.
It is.
I mean, so I think we're both on pair there. So 7. So before we get into the next team, any other comments you have to say?
No. I mean, Kane and Taze, for your legacy, I hope that you guys move on to a better situation. And if you do stay there, I hope that your leadership and, the heart and soul that you guys have been for this team for so long translates to that new class.
Well, speaking of a rich tradition of winning that just happened more recently, I should say, let's talk about the team to beat currently in the NHL, the Colorado Avalanche. This man, Joe Sakic, really built a winner here.
Yes, he did.
He's got 1.9 in cap space, but I don't know how Nathan MacKinnon's only making 6.3, but okay. This is a fantastically well-built team. I think it's a very good team. I like. There's really not too much to complain about with the roster construction, but let's get into the depth chart. Let's start off with the forwards. Yeah, Valerie Nichushkin, who had a really good season last season. 62 games played, 25 goals, 27 assists, 52 points. Yeah, Nathan MacKinnon, 65 games, 32 goals, 56 assists for 88 points. Then you have Mikko Rantanen, 75 games played, 36 goals, 56 assists for 92 points. That's one of the best first lines of all hockey.
Yep. Easy.
Hands down. Then you got Evan Rodriguez, who
they just got him, didn't he?
Yeah, they just got him. And this is actually a thing that we talked about, right? Mm-hmm. He maybe Alex Newhook stepping up, but let's the Gabriel Landeskog is big. Evan Rodriguez in this role, 82 games played, 19 goals, 24 assists, 43 points, and then Turi Lehkonen, 74 games played, 19 goals, 19 assists for 38 points. I mean, that's a solid second line. I think getting more of a proven guy at that second line center is a smart idea.
I mean, honestly, I've watched Evan Rodriguez play. I like his game. It's very dynamic. He's one of those guys that you don't see him until it's too late. He's very sneaky off the puck. And, obviously he brings that top game mentality because obviously he's been playing with Malkin, Crosby for the past couple of years. And I think that, what he's going to bring is definitely stability to the second line and, some more of an offensive threat there in the middle, that's kind of proven. So, yeah, that's going to be an exciting line to watch. I mean, obviously the first line is going to be amazing, but this second line, man, I think that those point totals for all of them are going to go up, honestly.
I think so. I think you might see a slight... I mean, the one thing I like about Rodriguez and Landeskog is they both can play center. Mm-hmm. But I think you might see a slight step back with Kadri going to the Flames. But, I mean, quite frankly, to me, I think this is still a very good second line that has potential to score more. I agree with you there. Mm-hmm. You have this third line, Logan O'Connor, Alex Newhook, JT Compher, who had 24 points, 33 points respectively. I think Alex Newhook, Boston College Eagle alumni, watched him in college. Really good player. I think there's more there, obviously only being 21. I think him being on a third line is actually good. Give him time to really develop at the NHL level, get used to this game more. I mean, yeah, he played 70 games last season, 71 I should say. But I could see him getting maybe around 40 points this season. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just going to be a process. So I really like that third line.
Yeah, I definitely think this is going to be one of those seasons where he grows and he already seen how Kadri plays. Obviously he's been with the team a couple of seasons now. But bringing in someone like Rodriguez gives him a different look and probably even opens up his mind where he learned something different, because he was Rodriguez was obviously on Pittsburgh. Yeah. So he has a whole different mindset. So he's going to get here. He's going to probably, give a few tips here and there. And that's going to improve the team overall. Obviously, still losing Kadri is a big loss, but I don't think the fall off's going to be as bad as it initially thought when there was no Rodriguez. So,
yeah, I would definitely have to kind of agree there. I think for me it's going to be nice. And then you got a third line here with Andrew Cogliano, Darren Helm, Jason Megna. Solid fourth line grinders. I mean, Darren Helm feels like he's been around forever at this point.
Yeah.
And I thought he'd probably be in his 40s at this point, but he's not. Solid player, and that's a good fourth line, right? Nothing crazy, but just grit that you need to win a cup.
Your fourth line just needs to be able to give your other lines a break and just hold on. And if they score, then that's beautiful. If they don't, nothing lost.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with there. And let's get into the defense here. You have Devin Taves, 66 games played, 13 goals, 44 assists, 57 points. With Cale Makar, 77 games played, 28 goals. Jesus Christ, 28 goals. I just read that again. 58 assists, 86 points. Samuel Girard, 67 games played, 5 goals, 23 assists, 28 points. Josh Mason, 67 games played, 6 goals, 10 assists, 16 points. Bowen Byram, 30 games played, 5 goals, 12 assists, 17 points. And then Eric Johnson, 77 games played, 8 goals, 17 assists for 25 points. I mean, 52 and 48 plus minus from Taves and Makar is just like video game numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a solid decor. I mean, I can't really argue with it.
/ forward line.
Well, and that's the crazy thing. I think that's where a lot of that offense is going to be made up from, right?
Yeah.
It is going to be the back end. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think though, adding Evan Rodriguez gives a little bit more legitimacy up front to that top six, a little bit more proven veteran leadership. I'm not saying Newhook couldn't thrive in that role, but I think giving young players not too much rope to hang themselves with is a smart thing. Like, give these guys the time to develop. Don't rush it. but yeah, I can't really complain. I think Eric Johnson and Bowen Byram. I mean, you're hoping Byram kind of takes that next step, being 21 and a young guy and is still on an ELC. You're hoping he takes that next step in his development. Maybe he can challenge for a top 4 minutes. But overall, they're a relatively deep team, and I don't defensively especially. I think they're solid.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that one.
So let's get into the goaltending. The bigger acquisition here, Alexander Gorgiev.
Gorgiev.
Oh no, I can already see the comments. 33 games played, 2.92 goals against, 898 save percentage, 15 wins, 10 losses. Pavel Francouz, 21 games played, 2.55 goals against, 916 save percentage, and a 15-5 record. And we got to give credit to Francouz.
Yeah.
He played well in the playoffs when he had to. When Kemper went down, he played well.
Yes, he did.
He was an important run for them to win that cup. So, gonna give him his due justice. He's 32 years old, but he played one of his better years. Played solid, but I think them bringing Gorgiev in kind of shows that they want to have some mix of youth in there, and they think Gorgiev is going to be the number 1 goalie. Now, as a New York Rangers fan, right?
Yeah.
You've watched Gorgiev more intimately than everyone else that I would probably usually say when I kind of do these videos. What would you say about Gorgiev? What's his pros? What's his cons? Go.
Okay. Let's start off with the bad things, right? The bad things is if he doesn't play a lot, he tends to have like rust build really fast. So if he's not playing consistently, he tends to be out of the game for a little bit when he does come back. Not saying he's not competitive, but you can see the rust. And it happens really fast with him. Pros, playing consistently, he becomes better and better and better all the time. And then when you have a solid defense in front of him, right, he will play amazing. Now, obviously on the Rangers, he never really got that consistent play. He got stuck behind 2 elite level goalies in Lundqvist and then behind Shesterkin. It wasn't going to happen. It just wasn't in the cards for him, and he wasn't satisfied being the number 2. I think that here he's going to have that chip on his shoulder. He plays very well. He's very acrobatic. He can, like I said, once he starts playing consistently, you're going to see why Colorado went for him, because he really is good. He is extremely good. I would say he's a very good starting goalie. He just needs the right team in front of him. Obviously, when he did get any type of starting minutes over the past couple of seasons, it was during the transition from Lundqvist to Shesterkin, and the team was also in the midst of their rebuild. So for him, he never really had that solid team in front of him until last season, which is why his numbers went up, whatnot, his wins and everything else. But yeah, now you put a team that's already proven and solid all around in front of him. Expect the best from Georgiev. I do.
I mean, I think there's upside there. He's only 26. Goaltenders usually develop later, right? So some goalies won't even enter their prime until they're like 28. I think this has a chance to be good. And I think the important thing here for Gorgiev is he went to a good team, a good situation. Yep. I think if Gorgiev went to Arizona, no help with him. But I think if you go with Colorado, I could see him pulling out very similar numbers to Kemper or Francouz in between that level. I mean, this team is deep. All you need to do is make the simple saves. Yep. Occasionally bail your team out, but I think Gorgiev has more to give there. And I think with, obviously you go with Shesterkin, but I think here with a team that will give him the chance to be a number 1, I think he could be an above average starter.
Yeah. I mean, for any Colorado fan that's still questioning that move, be prepared to be surprised. I promise.
So let's kind of get right into it. Favorite part of the show, in my opinion. Let's go down to the division.
Oof.
They finished first, and I'm going to go out of here on a limb and say they're going to do it again. Ooh, crazy prediction. Ooh, hot take. But they're a good team. Kadri's a loss, sure. Johnson, he was a bottom pairing defenseman, so not as big of a loss in my opinion. But I think with Rodriguez, is it going to be the same offensive output? Maybe not, but could be, because you have really good players right next to him, like Landeskog. Could really have a career year. And, I like this Colorado roster. Their biggest weakness would probably be goaltender. But I would actually have to say the same thing last season. Their biggest weakness was goaltender, and they won a cup. So if the goalies can make the saves they need to make, or they should be making, this team going to finish first. What are your thoughts, Fajardo?
I expect them to be challenging for first. I expect one of these other teams, and I'll get to it, to challenge for that first spot though. But yeah, I expect them to be first or second, lowest. Nothing else than that. No lower than second, but that's it. Well,
alrighty. So that was they're a really well-built team, really all the way overall around. And it's going to be interesting to see how this season goes, because it's very hard to repeat. Before we switch, do you think they can repeat?
Yes, I do think they can repeat.
Well, I'm going to have to say, yeah, I think they could repeat. I think if the stars align, right, and they do business how they should, I could easily see this team repeating and winning another Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Because all the pieces are there. So, speaking of star power,
yes, sir.
Let's go to the Dallas Stars. This owner likes to roast Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn, too. It's a very interesting dynamic. I've never seen an owner hate his own players so much. I could get criticizing players, but it seems like every offseason he's like, these guys suck! And it's very peculiar moving, but let's...
it's your players. They suck. They're your players.
You paid them that millions. Let's call it... Let's keep it honest. You got 9.85 for Seguin and 9.5 for Jamie and Ben, and Joel Pavelski at 5.5 at this age would seem a lot, but he was kind of productive last season.
Yeah.
Heiskanen on the back end, young 23. That's when you pay them, is when they're young, at 8.4 mil. Linden 5.8. I mean, there's nothing crazy here, and then you have the future in net with Ottinger. The future is very, very bright in that. So let's... Yeah.
Ottinger was an animal last season. The guy is just amazing. So,
let's get right into it. Jason Robertson is not signed yet, by the way. He is a restricted free agent, but he had a phenomenal year last year. 74 games played, 41 goals, 38 assists for 79 points. Over a point per game. That is awesome. You have Rope Hintz, 25-year-old. Now he's actually signed. That's good. 80 games played, 37 goals, 35 assists for 72 points.
Hintz is nice.
He is nuts.
Yeah, he is a really good playmaking, scoring. He is very talented with the puck. He is very good. I like him a lot.
Me too. I think they have a very bright future, honestly. Yeah. Now, Joe Pelvetsky, oh my God, Pelvetsky. Pelvetsky. I don't know why I just did that. 82 games played, 27 goals, 54 assists for 81 points. Almost a point per game, right? This man has the fountain of youth, right? He's on that TB12 diet, I guess.
No. Hold on. I want you to understand. My man has played on the San Jose Sharks when they were the hot thing, and he's still going, still putting up big numbers. He has definitely found the fountain of youth when it comes to hockey. He's brilliant. He's one of those guys that he just knows how to play the game, and it doesn't matter what age he is. He's gonna have one of those Thornton-like careers.
You know what's crazy? When they got him in Dallas, people were like, "Oh, you're getting a wash, Pelvetsky." It was crazy. So I like that. I like how this guy has really defied the odds.
Yeah.
You got Mason Marchment, 27 years old, 54 games played, 18 goals, 29 assists for 47 points. That's a pretty good point per game clip. Mm-hmm. And then you have the owner hatred, Jamie Benn, 82 games played, 18 goals, 28 assists, 46 points. Then you have his twin brother in hatred, Tyler Seguin, 81 games, 24 goals, 25 assists for 49 points. Now, I'm not trying to overstate this, but Ben and Seguin have been failures. They have not lived up to those contracts. And I'm not necessarily surprised as a Bruins fan. I watched Tyler Seguin when he was young, very streaky. And when he wanted to play, he was really good. But it's when he wanted to play. Yeah. Jamie Benn, I just think... I think he's one of these guys that's just not going to play forever, right? I mean, like, if you look at Pelvetsky, I would take Pelvetsky at the age of 40 over Jamie Benn at the age of 33. Like, I would take Pelvetsky 2 years from now over Jamie Benn because Jamie Benn's just not the same player. He's just not.
Well, I think the owner just fell into the trap that most owners are falling into this year, where they paid these guys a lot of money early to an age that they weren't sure if they were going to produce. And what's happening a lot is you're paying guys that maybe had a brilliant season, maybe had one or two brilliant seasons, but they haven't, really gone out and shown that they can get it done. I mean, they're good players, hands down. I give them a lot of credit because they are good players. They're not living up to the $9 mil plus contracts. I would say these guys are best are 6.5, 6.5 if they have a good season. Right, and then like the $5 mil range on their regular seasons, like they did last season.
I mean, I honestly, I would pay them at the max 4 at this point because they're just washed. It's funny, right? Look at the pay difference, right? This first, well, I don't know, Robertson's not here yet, but these two players don't even add up to one of these players. It's just crazy, and the point production's
way better.
Yeah, so. The third line, you have Marian Stanek, 32 games played, 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points. He was claimed on waivers. Riddich Faksa, 77 games played, 5 goals, 14 assists, 19 points. Luke Glendening, 82 games played, 9 goals, 7 assists, 16 points. I don't know why Glendening's over. Okay, whatever. Let's go to the fourth line. Joel Carvanta. This is why this cap-friendly depth chart don't make sense sometimes. Carvanta, 56 games played, 1 goal, 6 assists, 7 points. Jacob Peterson out of ELC, 65 games played, 12 goals, 5 assists, 17 points. And then you have Denis Guryanov, 73 games played, 11 goals, 20 assists for 33 points. Now, personally...
You mean Dennis?
Dennis.
Dennis, you want to make his name all nice and sparkly? Dennis?
Yeah, I know.
Dennis? No, Dennis.
It's Russia, so. But all jokes aside here, yeah. I think Peterson goes up the next line. I think Gorgiev goes up the next line. I think that would make the most sense to me because they're younger players and you should be wanting to have more minutes.
Well, I mean, Peterson probably keep him on that line just one more year of development before you push him up because Faksa is, I mean, he's 28. He should kind of be hitting his prime. I say Glendening moves down and Gurianov. Dennis. I think Dennis moves up to that third line. In my opinion, and I think that will solidify your lines in a better way. Yeah.
I mean, I think this is like an average. I mean, I'm looking at it; it's just kind of average. Unless Ben and Seguin kind of regain even 3/4 of their form, it's just like an average to an above average offense at times. Because Dallas had trouble scoring sometimes, so I don't know if there's enough scoring here, personally. So, I don't know, just like an average NHL. I think they'll be streaky, because like Tyler Seguin's streaky, but, I mean, what are your thoughts?
No, I definitely agree with you on that. I think they're going to be streaky. They're going to be the team that sneaks one out. from different teams. Not because they're super talented, but because their first line, people will look at them and consider them the second line just because of maybe their pay scale. But when you have two lines that technically can produce, I think that they can sneak out a game or two. Now, in an honest opinion, I think that Seguin and Ben and Marchment probably face the top defensive pairings, whereas the Hintz, Robertson, and Pelvetsky line probably played like the second defensive pairing and had a little bit more of a break to get more offense going. So it's probably one of those situations where this season the Hintz line will probably get more coverage from the top defensive pairing, and maybe it gives a little more room for Ben and Seguin to actually roam around and do a little bit more and gain some of their form back. But obviously we have to wait and see. But I think that's what will happen, where they're not the second line's numbers will go up, and maybe the first line's numbers kind of stay where they are or drop just a little bit. I think that they now, seeing everything in retrospect from last season to this season, teams will respect that line a little bit more instead of just saying, "Oh, that's an old Pelvetsky," and we don't
two young kids,
right? Two young kids, probably not going to do much, and I think that's where it's going to kind of like flip flop between the two lines. And if they can get both lines going, then they're going to be one of those teams that could definitely sneak some games out. Because if you're not ready for two lines that are just going to come at you, a team like this is just going to take it to you all night.
So let's go to the defense here. You got Ryan Sutter. Mm-hmm. He's played a while, 37 years old, but he's still performing at a decent level.
Yeah.
82 games played, 7 goals, 25 assists, 32 points. You have Miro Heiskanen. He's only 23 years old, so he's your future. 70 games played, 5 goals, 31 assists, 36 points. Issa Linden, he's 28, 76 games played, 4 goals, 21 assists for 25 points. That's a solid from a back end. That's what that's a good top 4 guy. Yanni Hakapa, 30 years old, 80 games played, 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points. Not terrible. Mm-hmm. And then you have Thomas Harley, young ELC defenseman here. They have slotted 34 games last season, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points. For a young defenseman, not bad. I think they sheltered him, obviously, when he came up. And then you have Colin Miller. I'm very familiar with Colin Miller, 29 years old, 38 games played, 2 goals, 12 assists, 14 points. And he's a solid defender when healthy. That's the big thing.
Right.
Health. So, I mean, I think this defense is, solid.
It's solid. It's solid.
I'll give them above average just because of Heiskanen and I think Sutter. And I think if Miller's healthy, he's effective too. And then if Harley can keep developing, I think that could be a very nice fit. So I think it's an above average decor. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's set up where your best guys are going to run most of the nights, and then you have some of these young guys that are stepping in, and they can learn a lot. They can play the game well. So only growth is in their future, like Harley, Heiskanen. I mean, Heiskanen, he's already growing, but I think he can probably reach one of those elite levels if he keeps growing in this fashion. I mean, outside of that, you just look at the way it's set up. You have guys that are either around the similar age, or one guy that's completely opposite of the other, which is always a good combination because the older player can give some guidance to the younger players and help them develop. Maybe, give them a tip or two, or say, hey, listen, I noticed this or whatnot. The older partner that can break it down for them and say, hey, you want to get better. You got to change this. You got to change this. Hey, let's work on this together. I'll give you this freedom and I'll cover this, and then vice versa, whatever the case is. But I think that veteran leadership that you have in the pairs themselves is only going to take them to that next level as defensive pairs.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think you have a proven star like Ryan Sutter, who, like, in his prime was an all-star, right?
Yes, he was.
Heiskanen's an all-star. I mean, you're going to have guys that have had high levels of success in the NHL, so I think that's always good for these young guys to learn from.
Yep.
Hopefully, Harley can kind of absorb that. Going into goaltending. You got Jake Ottinger, 23 years old, 6'4", big boy.
Yep.
48 games played, 2.53 goals against, and a .914 save percentage, and 30 wins and 15 losses. Then as the backup, you have Scott Ledgewood, 6 foot tall, 37 games played. And it's crazy. The 6 foot is now short, it seems like. 37 games played, 3.14 goals against, 910 save percentage, 13 and 15 record, win-loss. I mean, I think this is a very good combo, right? Both goalies over 910 save percentage. Maybe get that goals against down a bit for Wedgwood, but I think Ottinger is obviously the future. He should be carrying the load. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes over 50 games this season. I think this team will go as far as Ottinger carries them. And he showed in the playoffs, in big moments, he can rise to the occasion. And it's because certain goalies will be really good regular season goalies. But what gives me a lot of hope for this franchise is like Ottinger rose up in series that like Dallas should have no business being in, and took them pretty far considering. Just saying, like I like Jake Ottinger. I think he can be a top 5 goalie within a few years. What are your thoughts?
I just think that this team has a lot of youth that's developing properly, slowly here and there, but it's developing very nicely. You know, obviously they have those bigger contracts, and you hope that they show up. But their future is exciting. You know, when you have an outstanding goalkeeper that, especially this young at 23, a lot of goalies don't make it into the league just at 23. You know, normally 24, 25 is when they start getting their feet wet. But this guy's in here at 23, making it look like a video game, doing a bunch of different things, and you know, helping his team win. And that's all you can really hope for is for a goalie to, you know, come out there and be a star. And he's doing that, hands down. He is a very, very, very good goaltender. And then with a solid defense in front of him, it only opens up the offense for the guys up front.
Absolutely. I would have to definitely agree with that. I think he's a very solid goaltender, and it's going to add a lot of potential to this roster. Now, going into the potential side, let's go into the standings. They finished last year 4th in this division, and this is a very, very deep division. This is probably the deepest, I'd say, in the whole NHL. Mm-hmm. I mean, finished 4th, 46 wins, 30 losses, 6 OT losses, 98 points. I could see them finishing. I could actually see them finishing probably 4th or 5th again. I'm leaning more towards the 5th side of things because that offense does worry me. I mean, look at the goal differential last season. They finished higher than Nashville and had a worse goal differential. That's very, very rare.
Snuck out those games, man. I'm telling you.
So I think it'll be close. I think they could fight for a wild card spot, but yeah, I don't know. I think they'll be in the mix definitely for playoffs, but I think probably 4th or 5th. I'm leaning towards 5. What about you?
I say the same. I say 4th or 5th, and depending on some of the other teams that we still yet have to do, they're one of those teams that can sneak into a higher position if their cards play out properly, right? Because again, they still have a lot of youth on their team. You know, a lot of fight. Considering how they fought to get into 4th last season, I think that they can top sneak out into 3rd by maybe a point, but I would expect them to stay around the number 4 spot.
I mean, absolutely. I don't see them really doing much more than that, and it's not because I don't believe in their vision. I think some youth mix is good, but I just don't think they're there yet. I think it's going to take a bit of time. So another team that has got a lot of promise here is the Minnesota Wild. Alex, Fajardo, whatever. My name's Paul. I mean, this is a team that has a lot of future here. You got Kaprizov, you got Zuccarello, excuse me.
Thank you.
You have Jared Spurgeon, Jonas Brodin, Matt Dumba, who actually, funny enough, a friend of mine hates Matt Dumba, but that's a whole different conversation. And you got Marc-Andre Fleury. At the age of 37, as the bona fide number 1 goaltender. let's go into the depth charts. I would actually, let me back up for a second just to make sure I said it. Yep, 5.7 in cap space. All right. Let's get into it. The first line for the Minnesota Wild is looking like this. Gabriel, Kaprizov, Ryan Hartman, Matt Zuccarello. Yeah. Kaprizov had 81 games played, 47 goals, 61 assists for 108 points. Phenomenal year. Phenomenal. You got Ryan Hartman with 82 games played, 34 goals, 31 assists for 65 points. Really solid season.
Yep.
And then you got Matt Zuccarello.
Sorry, I had to do that. That's what we do out here in New York for Zuccarello. He's still in our hearts, man. We love that guy.
70 games played, 24 goals, 55 assists, 79 points, over a point per game. Good playmaker. Mm-hmm. I mean, this first line is really good. So
they're deadly, man. Man, listen, I don't care how small Zuccarello is. That guy's got heart for every team in the NHL, period. He is a no-quit, hard-nosed, everything you want in a player. It just comes in a pint size of 5'8", and he's explosive. I don't know how he does it, man. He reminds me of like a Theo Fleury, where he just grinds, he gets in there, he does everything you want from a guy. You wish you had guys that were 6'4", 6'5", that can do what he does. But he just brings it every single night. I love the guy. Man, it was one of the saddest moments when he went, but it was part of the rebuild process. But Zook, forever a Ranger in my heart.
You got the second line. You got Jordan Greenway, 25 years old, 62 games, 10 goals, 17 assists, 27 points. You got Eriksson, EK, 77 games played, 26 goals, 23 assists, 49 points. Very solid second line production. And you have Marcus Foligno, the good Foligno. 74 games played, 23 goals, 19 assists for 42 points. Solid second line production. I mean, I like that second line. It's I think Greenway will have more to give. I mean, he's a big boy at 6'6". I mean, I'm surprised they didn't put him back at defense at a young age. Like, oof, that's a big boy. But having that much strength and power up front with his wheels, I mean, you can't really complain. And then you got Brandon Daheim, right? 80 games, 6 goals, 11 assists for 17 points. Frederick Gaudreau, 76 games played, 14 goals, 30 assists, 44 points. Matthew Boldy on an ELC contract, 47 games played, 15 goals, 24 assists for 39 points. I think, that's a decent third line. I think you'll have to see more out of Brandon, a little bit more production there. Yeah. He should be probably more around at least like a 0.4 per game clip. Boldy played extremely well in the limited games last season. I mean, I say there you could make an argument of him even getting bumped up a line, right? Because he can play left wing, maybe moving Greenway down a line as a more of a grinder, right? Maybe you'll have a little bit more offensive upside there on the second line. Just my opinion. I don't know what your thoughts on that is.
No, I agree. I think put the big boy down, maybe a line. Still pretty young. I think let him develop on that fourth line, grind it out. And try to get his point production up with hopefully weaker defenses and probably a little bit more space.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, it looked like he played in 14 minutes average time on ice Greenway. So I think him in a third line role would be fine. You got fourth line Conor Duar, young guy, 35 games, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points. You have Marco Rossi, ELC, only 2 games played, 0 points. And then you have Tyson Jost, 24. Probably the elder statements on that line, which is hilarious. 80 games played, 8 goals, 12 assists for 20 points. A bunch of young guys on the youth, which I don't see on the fourth line. Nothing wrong with that. Give them a chance to develop with limited minutes. I think overall this is I think probably like I don't want to just say above average. I'm using that a bit. Probably like just beneath being a star level offense. No, you know what? Fuck it, I'll go there. I think they're probably going to be a top 8 offensive team this season.
Yeah.
I think the offensive scoring's there. It's I'm trying to. I don't like to make leaps, but I'm just looking at it, really thinking at it. I think there's going to be more to give with some of these younger guys. And I mean, if Boldy's already averaging that many points per game, I mean, there's only the future's just bright, you know.
Yeah.
And I think Kaprizov's talent, Zuccarello's talented. You know, there's a lot to give there, man.
Yeah, a lot of upside.
And let's look at their decor. You have slotted here Jacob Middleton, 26 years old, 66 games played, 4 goals, 10 assists, 14 points. You have Jared Spurgeon.
He's good.
65 games played, 10 goals, 30 assists, 40 points. Yeah, he's very good. Mm-hmm. You have Jonas Brodin. 73 games played, 5 goals, 25 assists, 30 points. And you have Matt Dumba, one of my friend's most hated defensemen. 57 games played, 7 goals, 20 assists for 27 points. And Dumba and Brodin averaged the most time on ice for that defense. They probably took more. They ate more of those top line minutes, it seems like.
Yeah. And
then you on the third pairing, you have Alex Golgoski. I don't know how the fuck you'd say that. Goloski. We'll just go with that. 72 games played, 2 goals, 20 assists for 30 points. That's very solid production. And then you have the rookie, essentially, with Colin Addison, 22 years old, 15 games played, 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points. Had only averaged 13 minutes time on ice for a reason. I mean, I think this is a very solid defense core. I mean, I don't think it has maybe the shine of some of the other decors we've seen in the league thus far with all the points, but I think they play the actual position of defense extremely well.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the successful teams, and the successful team have defensemen that are producing points, that are involved in the offense a lot, right? And as you can see, these guys. I mean, nobody's overwhelmingly involved, right? Like a McCarr who had 86 points, but they equally have all pitched in on the offensive side of things, right? I expect Gillespie to move up with Spurgeon and Middleton move down with Addison, in my honest opinion, as a third defensive pairing. I think that'll probably be the best combination for them. Yeah, they're older when it comes to Gillespie and Spurgeon, but I mean, their point production is only going to help the overall.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be you'll probably see a little bit more of an uptick this season. But I kind of like their decor. I've watched Minnesota play, and it's weird, right? Like, Minnesota's like the hotbed of hockey in the United States, and they play a very well-rounded two-way game. I mean, they're very hard to play against. That's why they were so successful last season. Yep. Now, going to goaltending, you have the legend himself, Marc-Andre Fleury, at the age of 37.
Still the highlight reel.
56 games played, 2.91 goals against, and a 908 save percentage with 28 wins, 23 losses. Now, some people are like, well, that save percentage is not amazing. I'm like, listen, he started out the season with Chicago. Like, I'd have to look at the splits, go into more details in that regard to break it down, but he played pretty solid for Minnesota. Some people say there was controversy with not starting Cam Talbot in the playoffs and starting Fleury instead. I mean, Talbot was the guy that got you there in a lot of ways. So,
all right. So I'll give you the split real quick, right? So when he was on Chicago, he played a total of 45 games. He had a 2.95 goals against average and a save percentage of .908. When he went to Minnesota for the tail end of the season, he only played 11 games, but he had a 2.74 goals against average and a .910 save percentage.
Okay, so similar, right?
Yeah.
And that's actually kind of surprising, but maybe it could have been just getting used to that system, completely different systems. But I think Marc-Andre Fleury, until he proves me he can't play at a high level, I'm just going to believe in him.
Yeah.
Now let's go to their backup. Philip Gustafsson, 24 years old, 6'2", same size as Fleury. 18 games played at a 3.55 goals against, 8.92 save percentage, 5 wins, 12 losses. Is this hoping this Gustafsson kid can really get turned it around? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that would worry me, right? Because you have an older goaltender, and Marc-Andre Fleury, what's he known for, Fajardo? Acrobatic, like dynamic saves, right?
Yeah.
But what does that do when you're older, when you're flopping all around like that? You're going to pull something. Yeah. I mean, knock on wood, it doesn't happen. But as you get older, you don't know. And it's like, I don't. The one criticism I'll give on this team is they got to have a better backup plan. I know Talbot got dealt to Ottawa. And I don't know. I'm not as comfortable with this backup plan. I think they should have brought in someone a little bit more proven.
I think the kid gets his chance to learn from somebody who's literally his mirror image in like
height and weight,
right? Physicality, right?
Yeah.
So you hope that he picks something up from Fleury and turns that corner to be that next level goalie, right? That's what you hope as a franchise. Will it happen? We don't know, right? But I mean, he comes from a good lineage of goalies from Sweden, so you hope that it translates over. And I think that's what their big picture was. Yeah. I like Cam Talbot a lot, but let's face it, you can't have two old guys just being there, because it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen where you're gonna have to look down deep into a prospect or something like that. So yeah, you got a guy now who maybe he might be the guy of the future if he makes that turn. But considering you have Fleury, you give him some space to learn. You give him someone to idolize in a fashion of hard work and trying to get to the next level. You know what I mean? So hopefully he can pick something up. He was drafted very high. He was drafted 55th by the Pittsburgh Penguins in the second round of the 2016 draft. So you really hope that he can kind of start living up to his potential.
I mean, I think the goalie of the future, I already know who it is. It's Wallstead. I don't know if you've seen any of his games in Europe. Phenomenal goaltender. He was drafted 20th overall in 2021. He's only 19. He's not even going to probably be in the league for another few years. This guy, though, will be the goalie of the future. I think they have a lot of promise in him. You don't pick a goalie that high usually. And Wallstead, I mean, and that's actually what we're going to be doing is like it'd be fun to go onto each team's prospects and other videos and kind of predicting or maybe kind of giving our opinions on. But I think Wallstead's definitely the goalie of the future. But for right now, you're right. Gustafsson, excuse me. He got traded here. He was drafted relatively high. Maybe him getting this shot as a backup and learning from Fleury might be the best thing for him.
Yeah, I think so.
So, I mean, let's get into the rankings. Where you think Chicago, I apologize, Minnesota. The Minnesota Wild is going to finish the season.
I expect them to be challenging for that first spot. That was a team that I think can take the top of this division over Colorado if everything goes well. If Fleury still can be the Fleury of old, right? I think that he'll be the difference maker, and yeah, I think they can. I think they can grab first, but I definitely think they're not getting any lower than second.
I think they're going to finish second. Lowest, I think, will be third. I think Colorado's just a little bit. I actually like Colorado's goalie situation a bit more. That's not an insult to Fleury. I think if you were to say goalies in their prime, Fleury is the far best out of all of them. But I just worry about Fleury getting older, maybe getting dinged up, missing some time. I'm hoping that has nothing to do with that. But I think second or third. I think they're probably going to finish again second place. Just because I believe in that offense. I believe in that defense. I just hoping the backup can play well, and I'm hoping Fleury can stay healthy. So, there's a lot of bright future here, in my opinion, for this team, and they're going to be competing for a cup, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, to the next team, the Nashville or Smashville Predators. 2.3 remaining in cap, about 2.4 remaining in cap, just a hair under that. You got Philip Forsberg, 8.5. You got Matt Duchene, 8 mil. Ryan Johansson, 8 mil. You got Roman Josi, 9 mil. That's a weird one. 9 mil, 05, like 59,000. That's interesting. You got Ryan McDonough.
Those are the taxes.
Yeah, Matthias Ekholm. You got a solid decor here, and then you got a guy that really filled big shoes, right? Like Pekka Rinne was a legend, right? Mm-hmm. And Soros kind of has picked up the mantle and run with it. And let's get into the depth charts we have here, kind of get more of a clear breakdown. So Smashville, you got Philip Forsberg, Michael Gronlund, and Matt Duchene on the first line on here. Forsberg had 69 games played last season, 42 goals, 42 assists for 84 points. That's ridiculous. Michael Gronlund, 80 games played, 11 goals, 53 assists for 64 points. Very good first line center. You have Matt Duchene, 78 games played, 43 goals, 43 assists for 86 points. Matt Duchene kind of finding his game last season. Mm-hmm. I mean, that first line's really good. I mean, really, really good.
And they still have a few more years in the contract to be together, so...
Yeah, and develop more chemistry and kind of build upon that.
Yeah.
You have Ellie Talvin, only 23 years old, 75 games played last season, 11 goals, 12 assists, 23 points. You have Ryan Johansson, 79 games played, 26 goals, 37 assists for 63 points. Very good season. Nino Niederreiter, you have 75 games played, 24 goals, 20 assists for 44 points. It's a solid second line. I mean, I think there's a problem. I think, like, Tanner gets pumped up probably to that second line left wing. Mm-hmm. My opinion, I think he probably has a little bit more production unless Tolvanen kind of step up his production. He's young. He has a chance there, but just my opinion. But yeah, you got Tanner Janot, 81 games played, 24 goals, 17 assists for 41 points. You got Colton Sissons, 79 games played, 7 goals, 21 assists for 28 points. You have Zachary Sanford, 80 games played, 9 goals, 12 assists for 21 points. You got on the fourth line, Yakov Terran, 80 games played, 17 goals, 7 assists for 24 points. You have Cody Glass, 8 games played, 0 goals, 1 assist for 1 point. And then you have Philip Tomisno, only 21 on an ELC, 76 games played, 11 goals, 21 assists for 32 points. Like, I see a lot of depth scoring here. Yeah. Like, it's, I mean, the top line's got those elite level point producers, but, I mean, it's depth. Like, I think this is a team that maybe their first line isn't better than, like, a Colorado, right? Mm-hmm. But, on the same token, you could say this. Their fourth line or third line could probably maybe be better than them. You know what I mean? I think if Nashville's going to be successful, they need all lines to score, right? And that's cliche. But I'm saying that there's potential here with Nashville where you could have, if you could have your fourth line scorers scoring around 30 points, that's extremely good. Maybe that might be a tall task to ask, but what's your opinion on their offense?
I mean, their offense is pretty set. I think the top two lines are definitely going to put up a lot of points. I expect Tolvin to move down, Tanner to move up, to complete that cycle of scoring. I would even go and put maybe Sessions down and Cody up, Cody Glass up, and then because. If you put 3 guys on a line together, that is their contract year, I think they're going to go out there and do some craziness to try to get that better contract next season. Yeah, I mean, now the thing here is you have a lot of youth still, right? A lot of guys are in their mid-20s. Not too many guys are at 30. You have 3 guys out of 4 guys in total that are at 30, but they're still in their prime, so... Yeah, they have a lot of upside to their scoring and their offensive abilities, which is something you need when you're in the Western Conference. Because the Western Conference, they're just they're just huge on goal scoring. Their biggest upside has always been scoring. You know, whoever can score the most is going to win most of those games.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's a lot of upside with the youth, and hopefully you have guys like Tomisino take another step forward. He had good, that's a good 76 games, 32 points is solid, especially for such a young player.
Yep.
So hopefully he can build upon that. Now let's get into their defense. Roman Josi.
Beast.
80 games played, 23 goals, 73 assists for 96 points.
Beast.
A monster back there. And it's funny, remember when the Predators moved off a couple guys? Like, well, will Josi be able to step up and fill that role? Mm-hmm. And he's done perfect. I mean, he's done really good. He's excelled in this role. He's 1.2 points per game as a defenseman.
I mean, I think some guys shine when the pressure's on them. He's one of those guys that when the pressure completely came onto him, he took it with stride. It was like, all right, cool, I got this, and then just went right into it and hasn't looked back since.
And then you have Dante Farbero on the right, only 24 years old, 66 games played, 3 goals, 21 assists for 24 points. Then you have Matthias Ekholm, 32 years old, 76 games, 6 goals, 25 assists, 31 points. You have Alexandre Carrier, only 25 years old, 77 games played, 3 goals, 27 assists, 30 points. And then you have Ryan McDonough, 33 years old, 71 games played, 4 goals, 22 assists for 26 points. Then you have Mark Broderick, also 33, 57 games played, 0 goals, 4 assists for 4 points. Now, I think the beauty of this team is you have 2 number 1 type defensemen. Because I like Ekholm a lot. I like his game. Mm-hmm. And Ekholm would probably be a number 1 lefty on most teams, right? But you have now 2 monsters to help along 2 younger guys. I kind of like that format.
Yeah.
So.
And then the third defensive pairing is a defensive pairing you don't have to worry about. Because, let's face it, Ryan McDonough still has something in the tank.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Is he what he was? No. But, yeah, like a bottom pairing guy, like that's crazy.
Mean, to have him as a third defensive pairing, that's super crazy because he's still at the second defensive pairing level. Maybe not a first defensive pairing, but I definitely think he can still more than pull his own weight. I think he's gonna increase his point total this season playing with this team. To be honest,
I mean, what the crazy part is? He's 6.75 on the third pairing on this. That's crazy. I think Smashville's probably got the best. I'm gonna go out on. I think they have the best decor. My opinion. I think they had the best defense score in the whole league. I just think playing the actual position of defense, not just points, this is going to be a tough team to beat. Enter the zone, score against is going to be tough. Mm-hmm. Going to goaltenders. You say Soros, 27 years old, 5'11". Shout out to the midget goalie, son. It's funny because people act like this dude's a midget. 5'11" is not that short, bro. That's the funniest part. I'm like... everyday person, like I had a buddy of mine, oh man, he's so short. I'm like, dog, you're like 5'7". Calm down. 67 games played, 2.64 goals against, a .918 save percentage, 38 wins, 25 losses. When he took over for Pekka Rinne, some people question his size and if he could do it, but could he do it in a more expanded role? And he stepped up and he's done extremely well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think he's another one of those guys you put the pressure on and a diamond came out. You know what I mean? So I think he's definitely going to lead the way, but I need Lankinen to go ahead and step his game up just a bit more in the backup role. You got to be able to help your starting goaltender, and if you're playing at the level that you did last season, you're not going to end well. Right.
Well, in defense of Lankinen, I think getting over here in Smashville where they play defense compared to being in Chicago, because he had a really good breakout year, right? His first year in Chicago. Yeah. Then he regressed because around a terrible team. I think a team like this, Lankinen's numbers go up. Yeah. I think he's at the very least a .905 save percentage goalie in the NHL as a backup, especially. I don't think this is a bad tandem at all. You got a guy like Soros who plays 67 games played, so he'll play 60-plus games, right? All you need your backup to do is keep you in them. That's it.
Yep.
And I think Lincoln can do that, especially behind this decor.
Yep. I hope it works out that way.
I mean, me too. I'm hoping for Lankinen's sense because he grinded over there in Europe. I'm hoping he kind of finds a second life here with the Nashville Predators. So let's get into where we think this team will finish in the division. Now, they finished 5th last season, 97 points, right behind Dallas at 1 point. I think they'll finish. I will think they will finish actually 3rd or 4th in this division. I think they're going to take a step up. I think they could actually easily finish 3rd because I think there's a lot of room to grow. I like that decor. Mm-hmm. That goal differential last season shows a lot of promise, and if certain guys keep raising their game, I could see them easily overtaking St. Louis for that 3rd spot.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you. I definitely see them as a number 3 in this division. I don't see them going higher, which is why I kind of kept Minnesota at 1 or 2. Yeah, but I definitely think they have a lot of upside to them, especially with the defensive end being so strong, and their forwards all kind of contributing. It's one of those things that's what you want from a team, because if you get a whole team, right? Colorado proved this last season. If you get a full team just pushing, and everybody being a threat, then you have more likelihood of success. So I definitely think that they move up to the 3rd position. In front of Dallas.
All right, so let's just say like it's going to be a very fruitful season there for Nashville because I believe in that decor. I do. I think it's going to be an extremely good decor. I think it's going to be one of those decors that constantly shuts down top lines. And I mean, I have to say this again. Ryan McDonough is on a 3rd D pair.
Bro, he's still a beast. Like, people sleep on him, but see that jersey right there? That's McDonough. He's still a beast. Don't get it twisted.
Do not get it twisted, people, because Ryan McDonough can still get it. Let's go on to the next team here. The St. Louis Blues. They only have $625,000 in cap space. Now, we're going to get into it, obviously, in a little bit more detail. But I was a little bit shocked, in my opinion, with... how would I put this? With the departure of Husso, I was kind of surprised. But let's get into this forward lineup. You got Ryan O'Reilly, you got Vladimir Tarasenko making 7.5, and on the back end, the high earners Kevin Falk and Torrey Krug 6.5, and now Colton Perico as well 6.5. And they have Jordan Peterson. I almost said Jordan Peterson. Wow. I'm sorry, Jordan Biddington. Apologies. At $6 million, and then Tomas Greiss is the backup. Let's get into the depth chart for the St. Louis Blues. All right, so let's look at the first line. They have... I don't agree with this. Brandon Saad...
mixed up. Yeah, I think their first and second line are backwards.
That's not right. Brandon Saad, Ryan O'Reilly, and Jordan Kyrou. 78 games played for Saad, 24 goals, 25 assists, 49 points. For O'Reilly, 78 games played, 21 goals, 37 assists, 58 points. And then Jordan Kyrou, 74 games played, 27 goals, 48 assists, 75 points. Like, Kyrou point per game, Riley and Saad were respectable. Let's get in the next line. Pavel Buchev.
Booch. New York Ranger thing. Sorry.
73 games played, 30 goals, 46 assists, 76 points. Phenomenal. Robert Thomas, 72 games played, 20 goals, 57 assists, 77 points. Phenomenal. Vladimir Tarasenko had a bounce-back year. 75 games played, 34 goals, 48 assists for 82 points. And then on the third line, you have Ivan Barbashev. 81 games played, 26 goals, 34 assists for 60 points. And then you have Brandon Shen, 62 games played, 24 goals, 34 assists, 58 points. And then you have Klim Kostin, 40 games played, 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points. Then you have on the fourth line, Nathan Walker, 30 games played, 8 goals, 4 assists, 12 points. Logan Brown, 39 games played, 4 goals, 7 assists for 11 points. You have Noel Chari, very good fourth line grinder, 20 games played, 3 goals, 5 assists for 8 points. I mean, if you look, man, this team definitely has some promise here. Mm-hmm. You know, I think. I mean, I hate to do it to them, but I think Saad and O'Reilly are more the third line guys at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, I would switch Saad and Riley for Barbashev and Shen, my opinion. Because, like, look at Shen.
I agree.
I mean, like, O'Reilly's the heart and soul of that team. But, I mean, maybe he has a bounce. I mean, it's not like he played awful last year, but, I mean, Shen had such a phenomenal year. I don't see this making much sense.
I think as they enter the season, they'll probably be messing around with the second line. I think that Buchnevich, Thomas, and Tarasenko line are going to be the number one. I think between that Saad, O'Reilly, Kyrou, Barbashev, Shen, and Kostin, I think that's going to be the mix to see which line or which connections best suit the second line and third line. Because obviously everybody can play with respectable numbers. I think Kyrou stays on the second line. I think that between Shen and O'Reilly, I mean, they're both the same age. Both very similar in physique. I think that you probably just kind of keep it where it's at. You'll probably leave O'Reilly, considering he's a heart and soul, on the second line. Leave Shen on the third line. And then just move around the wingers to see which one suits who best. So you give yourself the best opportunity to win. I mean, the fourth line, not horrible, because as you can see, the goal differential, they didn't really allow too many, when it comes to plus minus, they didn't really allow too many goals. It was very evenish, so that's what you want from your fourth line. If you're not going to go out there and score me goals, I don't need you to go ahead and let people score goals. And I think that's kind of what they accomplished. So as far as like that, the fourth line being established, I think that's good. I think that having a young center winger that's getting into his prime with a winger that's already in his prime is going to help them a little bit more if they get that chemistry and maybe add some additional scoring. Then I think that, they'll be much better off. But, yeah, that's how I feel about their forwards.
I mean, let's get into their defense. You got Marcos Candela, 70 games played, 3 goals, 11 assists for 14 points. You got Colton Perico, 80 games played, 6 goals, 29 assists for 35 points. You have Torrey Krug, who does what he does best, his point production. 64 games played, 9 goals, 34 assists for 43 points. You got Justin Falk, 76 games, 16 goals, 31 assists for 47 points. You have Nick Leddy, 75 games played, 3 goals, 21 assists, 24 points. You have Robert Bertuzzo, 73 games played, 1 goal, 5 assists for 6 points. Now, I'm not that big on this decor. I mean, I think any team that has Torrey Krug on it gets hurt because his defense isn't amazing, right? So, like, I think if you're going to try to make a playoff run, I think Krug is not a guy you can build your team around. I think he's a very good offensive D-man, but outside of that, in very tough games, I don't believe in him until he proves me wrong. I just don't see it. And Nick Leddy, I think, is, I
think he's a good addition. Listen, I think he's a good addition for what they're building here. Just because he is a grind out heart kind of guy. Yeah, last season he was split his time between two different teams. But I think I watched him on the Islanders for quite some time, and he's gonna give you everything he's got. He's gonna play that grind game. He's gonna help shut down any offensive player that they put against him. He's 31. He's really not an old 31. He still looks really good on the ice. I think he can still kind of hold his own. But I like that addition to their lineup. I just really think that it's going to be one of those that going into a season, you play a full season with Leddy. Not only are his teammates going to fall in love with him, but the fans are going to love him too.
I mean, I will say this with Nick Leddy. I think he has a nice part of his game. I look at this D-core and I'm looking, where is he going to get these minutes? I mean, he had 21 minutes last season, and
but he played on Detroit. Detroit would put anybody on the ice at any time. I mean, they were struggling all season, to really find an identity. I mean, they traded him to St. Louis towards the end of the season, where he still was able to make somewhat of an impact when he got there. He still put up some points, but I mean, he was probably playing, top defensive pairing on Detroit. He's not a top defensive guy. You're looking at a bottom four. Maybe he can sneak into a second defensive pair here or there. But on this team, if he sits on the third defensive pair, you have a really good defenseman on the third defensive pair.
Yeah, and true. And you've had him paired with a bigger body with Pertuzzo, or
Yeah.
I think it could work, but I say they're an average defense. I don't know. I'm not a big Torrey Krug fan defensively. I don't know. Until I'm proven wrong in that, maybe I'm being harsh. I don't know. It's very subtle. They'll be good in
the. That's the Boston in you. I know.
Facts. So let's get into goaltenders.
Yeah.
Jordan Binnington, 37 games played, 3.1 goals against, 3.13 goals against, 901 save percentage, 18 wins, 14 losses. They brought in Thomas Greiss, 31 games played, 3.66 goals against, 891 save percentage, 10 wins, 15 losses. I think they took a downgrade getting rid of Husso. Husso not coming back hurt this team because, listen, Binnington played well in the playoffs, right? But he was awful last season. He was absolutely awful. He was dog water. He was not the same guy. The one thing that worries me with Binnington, it's if the stakes aren't super high, and this is going to be weird when I say this, he reminds me of Quick like this. Quick sometimes, some regular seasons, would be kind of mediocre, and then he turned it on in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But I do worry, if Binnington gets into this mindset where he's like, I don't really need to try, it could cost them some games.
Very inconsistent.
Yeah, he's very up and down. It's kind of, he had that great cup run, and then after that, it's not been that same level of consistency. Mm-hmm. And, I don't think he's a $6 million goalie, not by any chance in my mind.
Not at all.
I think you pay him around $3-4 mil for that run, makes more sense. And Thomas Greiss, I think he's washed. I think he's way past his prime. And
well, I'm not going to sit here and say he didn't have a horrible season last season, but he was on Detroit. Let's face it. Any goaltender on Detroit was just always going to look awful. I mean, he somehow made it work the season before. He had a decent season between 2021. He had a 2.70 goals against average with a .912 save percentage while he was on Detroit. But then obviously the following year, which was last year, he had a 3.66 goals against average with a .891 save percentage. Right.
I mean, maybe I'm being a bit too hard on Greiss. Maybe that to be okay. I'll be fair. That's a good backup signing. That's a good backup signing. But what worries me is, right, Husso stepped into that slot of being the number one goalie for the whole season, when Binnington more of in a backup role. I don't think Greiss can repeat that. Now, obviously, you couldn't pay two goalies millions and millions of dollars. You couldn't. It wouldn't make sense logistically. Right. The Blues hitched their wagon to that Binnington train. But I am a bit concerned for that. I think their goalie situation is at the best average. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts? If you were going to say, are they top tier, mid tier?
I definitely have to say they're mid tier. I think Greiss will improve his numbers. I think he's going to take a step up. As funny as it sounds, with a better defense and better team in front of him compared to when he was on Detroit. I think that he'll improve them overall in the back end, just a tad, just because again he hasn't since I think since maybe 4 or 5 years ago when the Islanders was still competing at a higher level. He was actually, he was there holding it down and doing things that a number one would do. Obviously since then, the Islanders started falling apart. He ended up getting tossed from the team. Well, traded off or let go, whatever it was. Ended up on Detroit, where he had one good season, one phenomenal season for the team that they had in front of him. And then he had what you would expect with the team they had in front of him. So now he comes into a situation where a team is a little bit more stable. So I think that he'll probably have a lot to prove, even at his age, and he will take a bounce back season here and improve. Now Bennington is the wild card here because of his inconsistencies. It's one of those things. It's like, what are you doing? What are you going to do? And if he can find the consistency in this game this season, right, which nobody's looking to really honestly believe that he can, but if he does, right, then it'll be a solid back end. But still, I think the back end defense with goalie included is looking very average compared to some of the other teams in this league and the offensive power they bring.
So for me, let's go into the standings. They finished third last season, 49 wins, 22 losses with 11 overtime losses. That's actually surprisingly high for a top three team in that division. I see them finishing fourth just because I look at Nashville and I think Nashville's a better team on paper. I could be proven wrong. I like Nashville's goalie situation better. I like their defense a lot better. Offense is comparable, if not maybe a smidge better in some regard. Well, I wouldn't say better. Probably, I would give St. Louis the edge offensively, now thinking about it. But I know I think Nashville is a more well-rounded team, so I'm going to say that St. Louis finishes fourth in that division.
I actually have them lucky if they finish fourth, but I have them placing fifth in this division. I just feel like they may have lost a step. Yeah, your top line found its stride last season, but one, we don't know how consistent that's going to be if they continue that.
Right.
Because any step back and the whole team takes a step back, right? So they need to play at that top level. And then, with the guys that they have on their team right now, it's one of those things. It's like if everybody doesn't do what they did last season or take that step up, they're just going to fall right back down to fifth. And I think that Dallas, although Dallas isn't the greatest team out here, I think they're a little more solidified overall if everyone's playing well.
I would definitely have to agree. I think there's a lot to be said that this division is just so deep, and I don't know. I don't see enough there from St. Louis to really have me buy in for them to finish even. I mean, I'll give them fourth, but there is actually a part of me that I could see them sliding down to fifth. That's not a bad. I mean, I'm just being honest. I just don't necessarily see a top tier team. I think they're not going to be able to repeat what they did last season. So let's get into the next team on our list. We are going to be going to our last team. Oof. We've been at this for a little bit, boys. So the Winnipeg Jets. This team is always very curious. I'll just put it that way. I was it was dope when they came back, right? Winnipeg came back into hockey because these fans are ravenous for this hockey team. They have 5.5 in cap space. And their highest paid player is Blake Wheeler. He had 2 more years on that contract at 8.25. Then Kyle Conor after that at 7.1. Mark Scheifele at 6.1. Then on the defensive side of things, you got Joshua Morrissey at 6.25, Nate Schmidt at 5.9, and then Neil. How do you say that? Point?
Oh, Pionk. That's Neil
Pionk. That's right, because he played for the Rangers, right?
Yeah, he started his career with the Rangers. He actually, I remember being in the Garden when he had one of his best moments, which is a end-to-end goal on the Montreal Canadiens. he literally just went through the entire team, came in and just buried it on Price. I think it was. It was just one of those magical moments. You know what I mean? So I'm happy I was there. At the Garden watching it from ice level. It was just an amazing situation. So watch develop in front of your eyes. He has a lot of offensive potential. Where he struggled was the defensive side, but I've watched him play with Winnipeg, and I think that he's found a home for his style of defense and still being able to contribute his offense. So I'm very happy for him. He was always a really good prospect for us, and yeah, I expect big things from him. Going forward with Winnipeg.
And then with the goal, you got Conor Hellebuck and David Riddich. Hellebuck is considered one of the best goalies in the league at $6.1 million. It's not terrible. So let's. I pay for Hellebuck at 6 compared to Bennington. First 100%. Line, Kyle Conor, phenomenal year last year. 79 games played, 47 goals, 46 assists, 93 points. Stud. You got Mark Scheifele. 67 games played, 29 goals, 41 assists for 70 points. Great season. Over a point per game. You got Blake Wheeler, who I wish the Bruins never got rid of him. 65 games played, 17 goals, 43 assists, 60 points. I just got to say this. Blake Wheeler was harshly criticized by Bruins fans, right? Harshly. But you always saw those flashes, and I feel like it's weird. Bruins fans will stay... they'll be harsher on some prospects compared to other for whatever reason. And I think if you had Blake Wheeler there in the Bruin black and gold for another season or two, it just, I don't know, maybe he needed to change his scenery, but the flashes were there. Sorry, I just had to get that off my chest.
Listen, it's okay. Do you need some cream? Because I know your butt still hurts from this happening. It's one of those situations that comes back.
Exactly, man. You got to get the nice burn ointment. Ehlers, 62 games played, 28 goals, 27 assists, 55 points. Phenomenal season. You got Dubois, 81 games played, 28 goals, 32 assists, 60 points. He had a bounce back year. You have Cole Perfetti at 18 games played, 2 goals, 5 assists for 7 points. You have Morgan Barron, 27 games played, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. You have Adam Lowry, 79 games played, 13 goals, 8 assists, 21 points. You have Madison Appleton, who played for Seattle last season. 68 games played, 8 goals, 13 assists, 21 points. Then you got Jansen Harkins, 77 games played, 7 goals, 6 assists, 13 points. Dominic Tinato, 77 games played, 7 goals, 7 assists, 14 points. And then you have Sam Gagner, Gagner, 81 games, 13 goals, 18 assists, 31 points. I think the up front is an above. Actually, you know what? Because I'm looking more at the depth here.
I would say they're top average.
Yeah, I think they're average.
Average, but on the top side of the average side.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like one of those things where the top line produces well. If the top line can play a full season, you could actually see a few 80-point scores on this team, potentially more. If Dubois kind of keeps taking that step in the right direction, because I
honestly think Perfetti's not going to be on that line. I think it'll be Appleton that makes that move up to that.
I agree.
That's what he got brought in for. I think that you let Perfetti get down to the third line, along with Lowry and Barron, and help him develop a little bit more. He's only 20, so you want Perfetti to develop, and you give him a little more space on the third line. So I think that it'll be crucial for them to balance out properly. And if he's not producing or not playing well there, you move him down to the fourth line, and you let Gagner come up to the third line.
You're banging your mic a bit, bud. Sorry, this was kind of.
Sorry, I think that was my hand.
Yeah, that is your hand. I think with the... I agree. I think Appleton will probably get a chance there to be on the second line because he was on an abysmal team last year. And I think you get Perfetti more on a third line role, give him some time to develop, not throw him to the wolves. The one interesting thing up front here is that does Dubois stay the whole season? He's an RFA next season. he doesn't want to come back here, apparently, to Winnipeg. Does he stay in Winnipeg? I mean, do you lose a player for nothing? I mean, you wouldn't be losing because he's RFA, right? So they would have to match it. Mm-hmm. But in my opinion, this is a high point for Du Bois, right? He returned back to form. I mean, maybe you consider dealing him. You know? I don't know, just food for thought. We'll talk a little bit later on about it. But
I mean, I agree with you to a certain extent, but I think you give it at least 1/3 of the season to really see where the development is coming and the development of others, because maybe he might be developing well, but if he's, you know, like some of the other guys might not be developing properly, then you knowing his situation, not wanting to come back and everything, maybe you ship him off somewhere else and get somebody who fits you more that might not be as good, and then maybe get a draft pick or two to really try to improve your team next season. But and not saying at any means that, you know, the season's already over for them, but I say you really gotta evaluate this team 1/3 of the season in to really decide what direction you want to take with players like Dubois, where he doesn't want to come back, and it is his last season, you know, wearing the Winnipeg colors, and you know, if he still feels that way 1/3 of the season in, then you start shopping him around, see what you can get in return, and probably take the highest bidder.
I mean, yeah, I agree. You play him this season, see how it goes, and then kind of, you know, evaluate from there. Now let's go into their defense. Got Joshua Morrissey, 79 games played, 12 goals, 25 assists, 37 points. With Dylan DeMello, 76 games played, 1 goal, 12 assists, 13 points. You have Dylan Sandberg, 15 games played, 0 goals, 5 assists, 5 points. Neil Poink, 77 games played, 3 goals, 31 assists for 34 points. You have Brendan Dillon, 79 games played, 3 goals, 17 assists for 20 points. And then you have Nate Schmidt, 77 games played, 4 goals, 20 assists for 32 points. I don't necessarily agree with how they have this ordered here. I think you have Sandberg probably moved here to the bottom pairing, right? I think he's more of a bottom pairing guy. I think you move DeMello down as well. You put Nate Schmidt up.
I think you put Schmidt on the second defensive pairing, but I think you move Pionk up to the first. I think he's proven last season that, you know, he has a little bit of extra. I mean, you look at the time on the ice, and he was their second leading ice time defenseman. I think that at this point, you kind of trust him to the point where you play him so much, you move him up to the first defensive pairing with Morrissey, right? You take DeMello, you bring him down with maybe Schmidt, I guess, because Schmidt can play both sides.
I mean, it would be, because I think DeMello, at least in my opinion, you put DeMello down, maybe you put, you know, either you move Neil up or Nate, either one I'm fine with. No. You put DeMello there at the third pairing, and then I think you have Sandberg on the third pairing. I think a young defenseman you should protect, right? Yeah. So maybe you kind of bump up like Dylan up because he averaged 18 minutes last season, bump up to his second pairing, and then see how Sandberg does. See if he can handle those minutes and responsibilities.
Yeah.
I just get very leery of like depending on a young guy for being a top 4 D-man before he's truly ready. But who knows? Maybe he has a hell of a camp and proves me wrong, and he's like, "What are you talking about? I'm the best defenseman on this team." So, but I'll say their defense. I say their defense is
average, in my opinion.
Yeah, average. There's nothing wild here, but just solid, good defenders. I mean, the upside here is the plus minuses are pretty solid.
Yeah.
And I can't complain with that.
Honestly, I think Morrissey and Pionk together will become a very big part of any offensive line. Like, you put them on there, they're going to create offense. They're both really good at moving the puck and handling the puck as they go up the ice and in the zone, in the offensive zone. So,
absolutely. Yeah. I think that would definitely be a strong suit. Now, let's go to goaltending. You got Conor Hellebuck, 29 years old, 6.16666 cap hit, 66 games played, 2.97 goals against, a .910 save percentage.
These numbers, bro. It's got to be the taxes.
It does. 29 wins, 27 losses. And then you have the backup, David Riddich, He's an okay backup. 17 games played, 3.58 goals against, 8.86 save percentage, 6 wins, 3 losses. I think this is going to be another season where Conor Hellebuck plays 65 plus. I think because he plays so many games, right, his numbers aren't going to show how good he is because there's going to be certain nights where he just doesn't have the gas. But Conor Hellebuck is one of the best goalies in the world. And I think due to some poor teams in front of him and just how he's just a monster, he's a monster when it comes to eating minutes. It doesn't always showcase that. I mean, what are your thoughts about this goaltending pair? I think David. I don't know if that's a great backup, but what are your thoughts?
I mean, obviously everything's going to be on Hellebuck's shoulders. I think he's definitely playing 65 plus. If they don't have something that's more stable, yeah, the guy went 6-3, but as a backup, I mean the goals against average and save percentage is the one that scares me.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where he's just a fill-in. Maybe they'll bring in one of their minor system guys or their prospect goalies and take a look and see how they do. You know what I mean? It's just one of those situations where you got to find somebody to back him up. This guy does not look like he's the one. It looks like he can hold his own, but I don't think he's the right fit for this team. And I think that completely downgrades that whole back end defense and goalies included.
I mean, if you're going to go with guys in the minors and system, I think Burden would be the one to challenge him because I'm going to show the stats right here. I mean, the other guy had a sub 900 in the A. Burden came over from the KHL the season before. Seemed like it needed to transition with Manitoba, had an under 900 save percentage. But he had in 32 games last season, he had a 902 save percentage at 2.40 goals against in the A. I mean, is that breaking the world on, burning the world on fire? No, but it's potential there. I think these other guys are just too young and green.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Neaton. Could be Jared as well. It's just there's not much there. I mean, he did terrible in some of his limited. Yeah, he did terrible. And then Jared Moe. I mean, he had a good year last year with Wisconsin, but it's are you gonna rely on a guy just out of college?
No.
So. I mean, I don't know if that would make a lot of sense personally. So I think a guy like that, you got to kind of go and give it some time.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna look at what place in the division they sit, I think they don't move up. I think they stay in 6th place. They're lucky if maybe they slip into a wild card position at the 5th spot, but they're really gonna have to get things together. If they don't get it together, they're just wasting another season, and they're going to have to look at, some other options going into the off season. I don't see them going anywhere from 6. I think the bottom 3 are kind of solidified. Unfortunately,
I'd have to agree.
Arizona's going to be last. Chicago's going to be 7th. Winnipeg is going to be 6th, and then after that, between 3 and 5, it's a little bit of a tussle. I think Dallas stays in the middle there. I think St. Louis takes Nashville's spot at 5th, and Nashville moves up to 3rd. And then between the top 2, I think I honestly think Minnesota can do something and pull it out and come in 1st. But with Colorado now having the championship pedigree, right? How you call it? I think that even if they come in 2nd, they still have a good chance of repeating, considering that a lot of teams are still in their rebuild stages. A lot of teams on this side of the conferences, right, in the Western Conference, are either in rebuild or just finding their way. They're still the more whole team compared to everybody else. But yeah, I just think that's kind of how it's going to shoot.
So give me your 1 through 8 again, just so we're clear for the viewers. Who would go 1 through 8?
All right, Colorado and Minnesota between 1 and 2, both of those. But I think Minnesota edges it out a little bit. I think Minnesota finds another gear, and they come in 1st. Colorado 2nd. I have Nashville at 3rd, Dallas at 4th, St. Louis at 5th, Winnipeg at 6th, Chicago at 7th, and Arizona at 8th.
All right, for me, I'm going to go Colorado 1, Minnesota 2. I have Nashville as well at 3. That's just kind of funny. I would have St. Louis at 4, Dallas at 5, Winnipeg at 6, and Chicago at 7, Arizona at 8. And I think it's kind of funny. We both think highly of Nashville because I think there's more there. And I also think why St. Louis takes a little bit downturn. Like, they had 11 overtime losses. Like, is that going to happen again? Like, that's quite a bit of points from losses. So that's hard to ask. I think they've taken a little bit of a step back with the goaltending situation. Interesting, honest question just came to my head. Would you rather be Winnipeg, who's at least competitive and puts a decent product on the ice, or Arizona?
We can't even include Arizona, let's be honest. At this point, they're not even a franchise, to be honest. Right?
Well, okay, but who would you...
Let's be honest, right? They don't even have a stadium. All right,
yeah, I mean, okay, all right. So
Chicago or Winnipeg, right? That's
so Arizona gets devoted to the fucking NCAA,
right? So this is where you wish it was like English tier soccer, where you had the Premier League and then you had that second tier league, the championship, right? Because Arizona would definitely be in the championship. They wouldn't even be in the Premier League. They just dropped out. They just got relegated down.
The only good thing Arizona has done is switch the logo back and bring back those fire unis, my opinion.
Yeah. How you call it? So did Buffalo. Buffalo's unis, when we get to them, that uniform, oh man, since the Hasek days, man, I love those unis. But I would, it all depends on longevity, right? So if the downgrade has happened over the past 2 seasons, and I find myself in Winnipeg's situation where I'm competitive, but not competitive enough this season. And then I had Chicago where they've been competitive all the way until maybe, let's just say, right? Obviously, they haven't been competitive for a few seasons. But let's say they were competitive last season, and then they just dropped off, or whatever the case was. I'd rather be a team that knows it's time to rebuild, instead of a team that's faking that they're competitive enough to get into the playoffs.
I mean, I definitely would have to agree. I think just kind of starting anew, making sure you draft correctly too, because that's another thing is that's why teams like the Oilers, right, for so long were so bad, because they kept like, oh, we have a high pick, but they never picked right, really. Right. They never built teams around them, so... But
even the Rangers, you look at the Rangers, same scenario, right? They had a couple of seasons where they reached the pinnacle. They got to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Kings, right? Then the next season they got bumped off in the Eastern Conference Finals. Then the next season they got bumped off after the first round, and then they didn't make the playoffs again. And at that point, that's when they were like, you know what, fans, we understand our situation. We know it's time for a change. And we're sorry you're going to lose some of the players you love, but it's time to start looking towards the future and drafting properly. And they changed the whole system up. They got rid of people like Zuccarello. They got rid of, people like Pionk, guys that were heart and soul players or exciting players. And they rebuilt from the bottom up. And here we are where the Rangers are now one of the, contenders to get up there. So...
I mean, it's definitely kind of shows that if you draft and develop correctly, your team can get back in contention in relatively quick manner.
Yeah.
So, I'm Captain Paul. Down below is my frozen compadre Fajardo. We can hear his audio, so it's fine.
Wait, why am I frozen?
I don't know, because you're too good to be looking. You're too good looking to be on camera. Apparently,
God.
It overwhelmed.
That.
Yeah, so like I said, we're in the locker room. If you could like, comment, and subscribe, we would greatly appreciate this. We hope you enjoyed this longer show. We're going to be breaking this down into segments as well. We love doing this, love hockey. It's a big, big passion of both of ours. But this is a sports channel. We're going to be bringing you soccer or football, and then American football or NFL coverage as well. Make sure to stay tuned for that. So if you like anything sports, we at the Locker Room will be most likely covering it. So again, I'm Captain Paul. That's Fajardo, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Peace.